Weirding Way Media.
Hello and welcome to episode 139 of the Filmumentaries Podcast. I'm Jamie Benning, I'm the host and the creator of this podcast. This week I'm speaking with art director and supervising art director Dominic Masters, a man who has worked across some of the biggest productions over the last 30 years. Dom grew up around film sets thanks to his father, the legendary production designer Tony Masters, whose credits include 2001: A Space Odyssey, Papillon, Dune, and many others. Dominic started his career at 19 when his dad took him to China for 8 months, and it was the first Western film ever made in China. We talk about that in the interview. From those early days of drafting in China through huge builds on Titanic with James Cameron, James Bond, Harry Potter's, Wonder Woman, Belfast, and now the epic scale of House of the Dragon. His career is really kind of a masterclass in the art department and what that department does. In our conversation, we talk about the hierarchy inside the art department, the balance between creativity and technical precision, and directors who really know what they want. Also the evolving relationship with VFX, the madness and brilliance of building ships, medieval cities, and just about everything else in between. And we also get into the unique lifestyle of set life, that strange kind of intense micro community that forms and then vanishes overnight. It's a nice relaxed chat, as I always enjoy having for this podcast, with somebody who's really been there and done it and is still doing it to such a great standard. So here's my interview with Dominic Masters, and I'll be back at the end for a bit more jabbering on.
I was very fortunate. My father was a very successful production designer, having joined the industry. I think after the Second World War, he worked his way through the British film industry and then became a designer. And he was one of the greats. Really, he did things like 2001, Space Odyssey. Dune, the original Dune, the David Lynch version, Papillon, a whole score of movies that established him as one of the best in the world, really. And I was very fortunate that he took me on, really. I think I went to art school and was going to study fine art and, maybe not necessarily go into the family business, if you like, but it became fairly, obvious that was a very good career path to take. So he got me my first job, which I was very lucky to go to China for 8 months on a film called Tai-Pan, a James Clavell novel, which he designed, and he took me on, and we went off to China for 8 months, and
Wow.
That was in 1985. Which
How old were you then?
I was 19, I think, at that point.
Wow.
I sort of spent a year working as a landscape gardener, and then Dad said, "Well, do you want a proper job?" So I said, "Yeah, go on." So off we went, and that was the start of it, really. And I was very fortunate to spend a lot of that job actually learning to draft, which is kind of the meat and bones of what the art department does, is the technical drawings of design, so that you can hand these drawings to carpenters to build. So I was fortunate to get a good grounding on my first job, and then came back to the UK in the, I suppose, mid to late, mid 80s, 85, 86, trying to get work at that point was very difficult. It was a very sort of small kind of industry, and there was very few movies being done at that particular point. And so I was out in the big wide world then, trying to find my own job and making tea and prints and all of that you do for your early works, and learning the ropes, so to speak.
Yeah, what a hell of an experience to have, though. 8 months away on a job, and being able to soak all of that stuff up in an environment which was completely alien to you, I would imagine. China in the 1980s.
It was pretty alien to all of us. It was kind of like, wow, this is fairly surreal. I think it was very much the days of Mao suits and bicycles, and there wasn't the huge skylines that we see now. It was very, very kind of different place, and we spent, I think, 2 months up in. I spent 2 months up in Guangzhou, Canton, as it was previously called, and we set up, offices there, and were drawing up for Tai-Pan, which was effectively 18th century, 19th century, early 19th century Hong Kong. The start of Hong Kong was the tale about opium trade and all of that. So we were designing what Hong Kong looked like in 1830, which was a fascinating thing to do.
Crazy.
And just got involved in that, really. But China itself was very much still a communist, as it is, but obviously even more so in those days, a communist society. And we were the first film ever to go into China. It was a Dino De Laurentiis under his wing, but really produced by Raffaella De Laurentiis, who's his daughter. And we were the first Western movie to go into China and make a film there.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to go to China with Formula One. I think the first time I went there was like 2004, and I could see that transition had already begun, of course, but there was still a lot of the bikes and the suits and everything. And if you pulled a camera out, a security guard would pull the camera down, kind of thing, or ask you to delete the image. But there's something about that kind of international travel, isn't there, that just opens your horizons as a young man. I think I think everybody should do it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's what life's all about for me. I still try and travel at the drop of a hat. As soon as I finish a job, I'm off if I can do, just to try and see more of the world, because it's such an amazing and huge place. So it's kind of it's imperative really to make that part of my life, I think, and I think probably starting from those days, the excitement of getting out to China for 8 months when you're 19 was pretty epic.
Yeah. Did you manage to get on the sets of movies before that stage with your dad?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. Obviously, Dad had a pretty phenomenal career. I mean, the first sort of memories I have of really what he did was I was very young. I was literally probably about 3 or 4 years old, going to Shepperton H stage, and I still remember it pretty clearly. The 2001. Moon set where they discover the obelisk.
Yeah, right. That's such a great sequence.
Ramp going down.
Handheld as he's going down. Yeah.
All of that. And so I walked that ramp, and I still have very sort of vivid memories of doing that, and sort of thinking, my God, is this what my dad does, really? Sort of going into this strange sort of world. And so I was, from 2001, that's pretty much my only memory, is just walking that ramp down into the obelisk set. But over the years, obviously, we used to, whenever he was working at studios, we'd go, for a day and hang out with him, and you'd walk the backlot sets that were up in those days. It used to be the Oliver Twist set, designed by the great John Box, that was always at Shepperton. And various sort of carry-on movie sets that would sort of, that everybody would readjust the set for each movie. So these sort of Western sets that were standing sets around various studios around London, that used to get developed by each movie. They'd change it a little bit, and they'd always be developing, but they'd always be slightly rotting away, because nobody really had the money to look after them. So. Eventually, they all got scrapped. But I remember doing that as a kid. We were lucky to go onto location when he did Papillon to Jamaica.
Yeah.
Went out to Montego Bay, and they were shooting all over Jamaica. So we used to go to all the parties with Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman, and
Wow.
Frank Schaffner, the director, used to throw parties, and we were very lucky as kids, my brothers and I, to be invited. We would go along to that, and I remember sitting on Dustin Hoffman's knee for an evening while he told us dirty stories for a while. And I was only about 8 years old, but it was a good memory. He kind of wanted to keep away, I think, from the bulk of the the crew. He was quite a shy man, so he was happier talking to us kids than he was hanging out with Steve McQueen and the rest of the crew. I sensed, but so those kind of experiences we grew up with. My mother was also an actress, and she had a very strong career in her youth. Won a BAFTA and things like that. Heather Sears used to, she did films with Joan Crawford and things like that. So we were part of that, gang, I suppose, of movie brats, if you like, the UK version. We used to sort of get brought up fairly, we used to go, as I say, go to the sets and see it all.
Did you ever feel that there was a performer within you as well, like your mother, or did you always feel yourself was firmly behind the scenes?
No, school play. I played Scrooge in Christmas Carol, and that was about the summit of my acting career when I was about 12. But no, never really seriously entertained that idea. But no, it seemed that. The design side, I was always very keen on art and loved drawing and all that kind of stuff. So I was definitely heading that way, I think.
Yeah, it's one thing to have that keenness to do the design and the drawing and the drafting and all of that stuff, but also the other part of life on movie sets is, of course, just that sort of little microcosm of a life for 6 months or 8 months or 10 months. Was that something you were attracted to as well? This idea that you'd be working together with a team and then everything is then taken back down and you start again.
I mean, it is, as the more you do, the more you see that is real. You do all come together. It's an amazing thing. We once had, we were doing, I think it was The World Is Not Enough, one of the Bond movies, and they got in a business school to come and spend a couple of weeks with us on the set, just to sort of figure out how the film industry works and what the business, how it operates. And so we had these students that were hanging around and asking loads of questions and all this. And the end report was quite an interesting read, in terms of how you bring all these people together for a very short amount of time for some very intense periods of work with very tricky things to try and work out, and more often than not, new things that we've never done before. And that the actual sort of, the uniqueness of that business model, I think, doesn't really happen in too many other, industries where you all come together and then you're all fired again, and you've smashed out this sort of 8 months of intense filmmaking or whatever it is in the meantime. And if you're lucky, you'll be working with similar teams on the next job, but quite often there'll be a whole new bunch of people and you'll have to figure out how they work, what their strengths and weaknesses are, who to go to when things are getting tough or there's a mistake, or or all of those things you have to learn each time you start a new project. Unless you're doing something like I'm doing currently, which is House of the Dragons, where it's a repeat crew and everybody comes back time and time again. You're always trying to find out, the best way to get these jobs done in a short amount of time. And, that takes a lot of collaboration and a lot of discipline from everybody involved, really, because, if there's one department that falls down, we can all come tumbling down behind it, so you try and everybody tries to work together to keep the show on the road, It must especially if you're on a location where you're all living side by side and you're somewhere in Eastern Europe or wherever you might end up, you all bond. You hope you all bond in a good way,
Yeah, it's very rare, isn't it? I think it's partly like my part of the TV industry as well, where, you know, you have breakfast with those people and you have lunch with those people and you go out for dinner with those people and you go out for drinks afterwards with those people.
Absolutely.
And it is just this, like I said, a microcosm of like a wider life, really. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah, there's something about that continuity, isn't there? That shorthand with people where you can, on a series like House of the Dragon, I'm sure now that you're sort of obviously coming across challenges daily, but also you've coming into your stride to the point where you know where the difficulties can be and you can spot them earlier and all of that kind of thing.
Absolutely, you know, we have a certain shorthand and language that we all understand, and I think because of a show like that where the schedule is you know, crazy sometimes, and it is the only way to get the show done. But if you've got, you know, 8 episodes and a huge cast and 4 or 5 directors all sort of trying to piece this extraordinary machine together. You when you've done one of those shows, you kind of see how it works. But going into an episodic TV show, when I've always done movies, was very much a learning curve, just to see, right, oh gosh, we might be shooting episode 8 on a set in the morning, and by lunchtime we're on episode 1, and you have to then figure out, okay, so what's the dressing changes? Well, you know, has the place burnt down? Have they smashed it up? You know, all these things, and you're going between very very much you know, different periods in the show, but because of the schedule, you know, you don't move the unit from a set, because that loses time and loses money. You change the set to suit what's being shot that day. So there's a lot of
scheduling,
a lot of wrangling and a lot of work from a lot of people to keep those kind of programs, you know, on the road.
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially creating like a 15-hour movie or something, aren't you, on some of these shows?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
because the production values aren't any different anymore, are they? TV and film is very
certainly
much
not this show.
Yeah.
This is very high end, you know, very high end quality, and it is effectively, if you're doing 8, I think season 1 we did 10 episodes, so really in effect each hour-long episode, you're doing 5 movies, you know, at one time. Really is kind of how it feels, you know, with the amount of stuff you've got to do. So they're pretty intense shows. Yeah, a lot of you know, they're fairly relentless, but it's lovely stuff to do, and we've got great teams and, you know, good people on it that sort of everybody supports everyone to get through it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm always interested to find out how people kind of define their jobs, and I'm also interested in the sort of ladder that you climb. You know, I can see that you went from draftsman to assistant art director, art director. Is that a path you always felt like you were on, following in the footsteps of your dad, or was there ever a point where you sort of wanted to veer off into something else? I've just thrown about 10 different questions at you there, but
no, that's okay. No, I mean, I think once you start, my dad sadly passed away in 1990, so he got me on the ladder, so to speak, as I think I started as I did start as an art department assistant, which is, you know, where everybody who gets into the art department starts, and there's always been a hierarchy within the art department, and that's totally correct and good in that you need to learn each stage of the job, so that you know, we're a technical department, and there's a lot of information, a lot of skill that you need to learn and develop over your career to be able to call yourself, you know, a competent art director or designer or supervising art director or draftsman even. And we were always trained. I think the original art departments back in, you know, the 40s and 50s, we learnt how to do it, I think, from the Americans, and then we very much ran with it,
right,
as our system. And it, as I say, it's always been a hierarchical department, because I think if you jump too quickly through the levels, you'll come a cropper, you know, because your knowledge won't be enough to sustain what's being asked of you. And it slowly has always been my approach to going through a career development, and I think it's probably the proper way, so that we still stay strong as a department, because if you promote people too quickly, then there are screw ups and problems and blah blah blah, and then as a general department we start to look weaker. So it's really key that people learn their craft, I think.
I've had it in my part of the industry where people have climbed that ladder very quickly and haven't necessarily put in the sort of the due diligence and the time that is needed, because then what happens is the people below them start filling in the gaps that they don't know about, and it makes everybody's job harder, doesn't it?
It does indeed. And we've got some, and always have had some amazing talent within the British film industry and the British art departments, and we've all learnt from, I learned from some of the greats and worked with some of the legendary designers and legendary art directors who have held the knowledge, if you like, and passed it on. And it's our job to keep doing that and to keep passing on what we know, what we've learned from them, because it's it's a definite skill that you have to. You can have artistic merit, and you can have a sense of design, and you can have a sense of proportion, all these things, but unless you know how to use that in a technical manner to lay out a drawing so that you can throw that drawing to a workshop 300 yards away and they know exactly what it is they're supposed to be building without having to get on the phone and say, well, what does that mean? And so those technical aspects, I hope we are artistic in our department, because we're supposed to be the art department, but the technical side of it is really the meat and bones of the bulk of the department. Obviously the designer is the real creative end, and we hope that we bring creativity that gives flourishes to the designer's work as we then develop the drawings into technical stuff. But you sort of you need a bit of both.
Yeah, I can imagine it's quite a difficult sort of line to straddle, that technical and artistic as well. For a lot of people, sometimes I meet people that are one or the other. It's very rare actually that you'll meet somebody who's both.
Well, I think we have those people. We're very fortunate, and those people will get to the top, because you need that dual talent, if you like.
Yeah, and I imagine it can be a really big department, with a fast-moving operation like you just mentioned on House of the Dragon. How do you go about keeping everyone aligned? Because you've got draftsmen, you've got the production designer at the top, you've got the art director, you've got painters, you've got props. I mean, there's just so many people involved. Are you having meetings as a whole daily, or are you kind of divided up into smaller departments where each one has a head?
We certainly are through construction and props. Their own kind of outfit, really. We have a construction manager who effectively heads up the plasterers, painters, carpenters, metalworkers, that kind of thing. And the prop master looks after the whole prop teams. And through the art department, it's kind of what I was saying earlier, in that we are, we're fairly structured, and it's a well-trodden kind of path in terms of how designs get through to the workshops. So we would normally start with early days. You'd hope on a show like House of Dragons, we were in early, myself and the designer Jim Clay. We begin work quite a long time before many of the other departments, because it's all about the development of the look of the show and what's coming up and how that's going to work. And so Jim will do his initial designs that will go through to Ryan, and then through to the directors to be approved, and then we start working them up. So maybe you have a concept artist who will take Jim's original watercolors, which he does, which are beautiful, but the concept art is more often more detailed and kind of true to the camera image that we're trying to present. And once all that's approved, it's my job then to take those designs and farm them out to different art directors for different sets and say, right, okay, this is what we're doing, and Jim will talk them through the set, and we'll start drawing up the necessaries. We work to what stage we have to build it on, make sure we've got enough room to do what we need to do, make sure that the set is accommodating all the action that is required. And then very much, okay, what's the look of this? How can we make this really cool, and the art directors then start doing the technical drawings of the whole sets, which we would do at a slightly smaller scale. And then those drawings get fed out to the assistant art directors and draftsmen to start doing the details of, right, what's this door going to look like? Where's the door handle? What's the mouldings going to be on this door to make this look like an authentic medieval door? Where are we getting this information from? So we go to books, we go to, online, and we look up, certainly for this show, which is medieval, we go through to, wonderful old Encyclopedia Medieval, which is a classic sort of textbook that we all use to get a lot of detail of how medieval architecture was and what the structure is and the proportions and that. And
you've also got to keep it within the lore of the show as well, right? Do you have do you have an expert on site for that says, well, actually, that wouldn't be there because that hasn't happened yet?
Ryan is Ryan's the expert on site. Ryan Condell, who's the showrunner, he's the expert on site who will, say yay or nay. If we're going slightly off piste, he'll put us back on track. But I think we very much understand the language of Westeros now, which was obviously set by Game of Thrones, so we can't go too far from what was established as a look for Game of Thrones, but we very much, I think, expanded for House of Dragons. We're a much bigger show in terms of the scale of the sets, and what we're achieving for House of Dragon is, I think it was described as Game of Thrones on steroids, and I think that's a fairly good analogy. But it
is something to say, yeah.
Yeah. But depending on what you're doing, you might be doing medieval one year, and then you might be doing Star Wars the next, or you might be doing 16th century Paris or whatever it is. But all our work, to try and keep it on track, if you're doing that kind of thing, it's in the books. You go to your architectural books, you go to libraries, you sort out what things look like, so you get it right. And I think that more often than not, a lot of people don't realise when they see a film or a show that that's a set. And if they believe they're in a real place, then we've done our work well, and we've been true to history and architecture and got it right. Yeah.
You want that. You don't want people to think about it. Ultimately, you want it to be a sort of subliminal thing that people just accept. Okay, this is that world. It feels right, and then you move on. It's just a very quick.
You hope they'll be amazed by it, but you hope they'll believe it.
Yeah, you want the wow factor, of course. That's another thing I guess you're considering constantly as well. Is that creative ambition versus the budget reality, if you like. Yeah. I mean, I know on a show like this for HBO, obviously the budgets are larger. It doesn't mean that you're in any way more or less careful than you would be on a small budget thing, because ultimately you've got to always make it fit within that budget. Yeah, it's always relative.
Yeah, I mean, ambitions are always greater than what we have in the pot, and you have to make that work. And so there's a degree of the early stages of any film or TV show or whatever, where you let your imagination run and you create these wonderful things, and then you put a figure against it, and then it's like, all right, well, maybe just a little bit smaller, or you have to fit the figures as much as you can, and sometimes that becomes certain sets go over, and you try and balance it with the spending on another set to kind of make the bottom line work. But it's a juggling act, budgeting, and we try, to hit the mark. But it's always a kind of a shot in the dark, because we're inevitably putting figures into a budget very early on in the show, when we don't really know what it is they want, or what they want to produce, or what they're going to shoot in it. So you have to have a stab at it, and then that goes in and it's locked as a budget, and then somehow you have to make that work with all the different requirements and everybody's latest ideas, and wouldn't it be nice if, and you have to sort of think, okay, well, we can't actually do that, but we could give you this, So there's a lot of sort of wrangling goes on just to hit the figures, and that's kind of partly my job, and construction manager and Jim, the designer, on certainly for House of Dragons, we'll kind of work that through between us.
I would imagine as well that something that's changed over your career is your interaction with the VFX department. Where and how do you kind of communicate with those teams? How do you sort of find the line between actually it's going to be cheaper to do this set extension, make it 2 stories high physically, or it's going to be cheaper to do it in visual effects? Because of course, when you're budgeting something, you might be 12 months down the line to actually doing it, or 6 months, let's say, by which time there might be a new technology involved. You have to be sort of agile as well, I would imagine.
I think so. I mean, you certainly, working with Jim Clay, who I've worked with for many years now, he will always design to fill the stage as much as possible. Whatever the size of the stages that we're given, Jim's sets will inevitably be as tight to the stage walls as possible, so that we're getting as much in camera as we possibly can.
Yeah.
But bearing in mind that, okay, so we could put, in the digital world, we could extend this set up, and that could go, 30 foot higher, and we could put a great big window up here. There could be, we've got a big open archway door that we could then put a blue screen behind, and then throw that view, 200 foot if we want to, or you can put mountains out there. All of those things I think we consider as we design the sets, so we're trying to think beyond what is physically built to the world beyond. And I know that's a very important thing for a production designer, to not hand everything over to the visual effects department and say, you carry on, because then you lose the the solid not control so much, but the look that we're trying to create. Unless it comes from us to a degree, then you might find somebody in New Zealand is extending your set but not understanding the architecture that we're trying to set and that kind of stuff. So you need to have figured it out to a degree. We can't do it all, and we often do have to rely on the sensitivity of the visual effects department, and often they're amazing and very collaborative, and we all work very harmoniously. But it should come from the production designer what the development is of those images.
I'm sure it changes from job to job, but some directors are very sort of visually aware. They're almost kind of production designers, art directors in their own way.
Yeah.
How does that differ for you when they come already preloaded with this stuff? Does that make that easier for you as an art department, or do you find that there's sometimes clashes?
I think it can be, if they're really solid and they know what they're talking about. It can be great, because you've got a very direct line into what they're thinking, and I think that actually can be very helpful. And I think there has to be a bit of understanding, though, between a director and a designer, whereby, yes, they come in with a very strong image, but they have to be able to trust their designers to give them more, and to take what they come in with and then expand that into something perhaps they didn't imagine or think of, and that's why you employ a designer to take those ideas. So even those very strong designers, I'd imagine, my father with Kubrick, as an example, Stanley Kubrick, obviously one of those directors who totally had a very firm, fixed idea on what he wanted things to be, but at the same time, my father, being a truly great designer, took all of that on and developed the look for Stanley. But you'd hope that you'd hope you have a director who's visual. Some of them aren't, and you do have to then provide them and cajole them into certain things, and talk them through it. And they often before we really got into the world of concept design, which has been, I suppose, pretty strong now for the last 20 years or so. It's been a new sort of kind of field. We used to try and we'd build models, and we'd do technical drawings, and we'd try and show the directors what the set was going to be through that. And more often than not, modern directors these days don't really understand drawings, and they can see a card model, and sometimes they love that, but some of them are like, oh, I can't really visualize this, so they work to concept art, which in some ways can be a problem for us, because concept artists generally are, they're wonderful, but they're not beholden to a budget, and they're not beholden to stage size, and not beholden to so they sell an image sometimes that can be beyond what's achievable. So it's a bit of a melee of problems trying to get the directors to sign off and be happy with the set.
Do you ever work with previs on that side of things? Do you ever build 3D models in the computer to sort of show how the studio might contain a set, or
to a degree? I think we don't really do too much of that in our department. I think some departments are much more techie than say what we're doing. We obviously we're capable of creating digital models of the set and walking the director through them and all that sort of stuff, but because we're always up against such time constraints, and we've got a whole hungry team of construction people waiting for drawings, that feels to me quite often like a bit of a luxury that we can't spend months developing digital models and making it all all singing, all dancing. We've actually got to produce drawings because we've got to get the sets built.
The practicalities of it,
previs and that kind of stuff, visual effects handle a lot of that. We hand them our digital models, and then they'll then take that into previs and do proper journeys through the sets. We don't really take that on that often in our particular department. I know some other departments do, but we don't.
I was also going to just going back onto that thought about directors as well, because you've worked on several series, if you like, Bond, there's Harry Potter, and the directors changed throughout those. Going from Chris Columbus on Chamber of Secrets and Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone as they call it in the States, he sort of set the look of those movies, right? And then in comes Alfonso Cuarón, who changed it up. Was that something you kind of relished at the time, that we're going to kind of reinvent the wheel here, or did it mean that you had to put so much of what you'd already done, in the trash and start again?
I'm not sure that we reinvented the wheel with it too much. I think the sets were the sets.
More of an evolution, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, I think an evolution is a reasonable way of describing it. But I don't think, we had, say, with Stuart Craig, the brilliant Stuart Craig, had created the world in the first two films. So it wasn't like you could raise it to the ground and build it up again. It had to be fluid as a concept and a look, but within what we'd created as a style. So I think Alfonso went with it, and I don't know that there were too many dramatic visual changes in terms of what we built. I think everything was still heavily based in real architecture and real, the real sort of Gothic world with a twist. But I think stylistically the film was different. It certainly had a different pacing and a different look, and was kind of edgier, and certainly a bit more rock and roll than the previous two had been, which was what Alfonso obviously brought to it.
Do you step back sometimes and have a look at the films that you've worked on and think, wow, that looks pretty bloody amazing, actually? Because it's difficult, isn't it, when you're in it, to sort of see all the nuts and bolts. It's easy. You can see, the patches and the tape and whatever in your mind. You can see the job that you did. And then seeing it on the film translated, you're able to be like an audience member when you see a movie?
Not first time round. I have to see it once and then see it again.
Right.
But I think we have a golden day on every film set. You hope, where we've got the set ready, the set is dressed, they've lit it, we're waiting for the unit to come in the following day or whatever, and the set is yours for that day before they bring in the dolly and before they set up, catering, and they bring in the video assist and all the tents and all that fill the setup. So you get that day of standing back and looking at the set. And on many jobs, I'm still astounded every time I walk down onto a good film set of the craftsmanship and the level of finish and plaster work and paint and design and props and set dressing, and to bring it all together is amazing. And then you see it on film, and you hope they've captured it, and you hope they've lit it nicely and all that. And more often they have, and you sort of can appreciate it. But I will always be needing to see it twice to not sit there and criticise it.
Yeah,
we sit there, oh God, that should have been better,
Yeah. I'm kind of the other way round. As an audience member, I'll watch it first, just let it kind of wash over me, and then the second viewing, that's when I'm sort of saying, well, hang on, that that doesn't fit, and why she said that doesn't feel like her character. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
I saw that you also worked on Titanic.
Yes.
For James Cameron. Was that out? Was that in Mexico? Was it? Or
well, we started in Leavesden Studios, North London.
Did you? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did. I think two months of drawing and design development in Leavesden, where we were. I think Peter Lamont, the production designer, had managed to get hold of the original steel drawings from Harland and Wolff, which were the original designers of Titanic in Belfast. So we got a few of the drawings, nothing, not the whole ship or anything, but we knew kind of the spacing of what, where the steels were, where the windows were, and all that, because we had the original drawing. So the first couple of months was in the UK trying to figure out that, and then we flew to Mexico City. And it was a very small English contingent, flew out to Mexico City, and we had a Mexican art department there who were fantastic, but all very new to it. So we were having to teach them pretty much how to draw, and the Titanic being 800 odd foot long is a hell of a thing for anybody to try and draw. And we were once we'd established the basic shape of it from the steel drawings, we then said, right, well, what's the detail of this ship? What did it actually look like? And of course, very few photographs of Titanic actually existed. So there was like a handful of shots that were taken on setting sail from Southampton, and I think there was some taken on the first journey from Belfast down to Southampton, and then blah blah blah, and then the thing sank.
Yeah.
So we had a very limited amount of reference. We had the sister ship, the Olympic, which was very similar to Titanic, which obviously lasted longer, and so there are a few photographs of that. But it was a historical piece of research for us as a team to try and get it as accurate as possible, because Cameron was insistent that we had a perfect, representation of the ship, and quite rightly. And
a tough director to work for.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Because he's another one who is an artist, isn't he? I mean, he was doing matte paintings, wasn't he? He was working in visual effects. He's got a very defined idea of what he wants to see.
He totally does. He draws, and he understands. He's one of those that understands everybody's job, which is an extraordinary skill. He's an extraordinary man. He's, as you rightly said, he's tough to work for in that he's very exacting and very kind of strong and knows what he wants and won't be shy in telling people when things are not going quite as they should.
That's another part of your job, Dom, being a diplomat as well.
Oh, totally.
Do you know, I had lunch with Michael Ford many years ago.
The wonderful Michael
Lovely
Ford.
Michael, I met him just a few years before he passed away. Sadly, his memory wasn't, his immediate memory wasn't great by that point. Right. But I had a lovely dinner with him and Peter Lamont as well was sat opposite
okay.
me, and just he told me some of those stories of working on that film, just how difficult it was on everybody. But he always, he won, obviously got the Oscar. The team won the Oscar for that, and the sense of achievement seems to have put all of those moments of stress sort of to bed in a way, because awards. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be recognised, isn't it, for something, particularly something of that scale?
Well, something of that scale that we didn't really know when we started it. Obviously, we knew James Cameron and Peter had worked with James on True Lies and Aliens. So he knew the man we were dealing with. We didn't really, and we weren't really sure why anybody would want to go and see a film about the Titanic. And we're thinking, well, okay, well, when this is, and we were pretty quick to understand the scale of the project when we were in the UK, thinking, okay, this is going to be a ride. And then by the time we got to Mexico City, things were hotting up in Rosarito, which is the north of Mexico, close to the border with Tijuana and San Diego, where they purchased a plot of land there to create Rosarito Studios. And then we moved up after a couple of months to the site there where the ship was going to be built and the stages were being built, and we were dynamiting the tank when we first arrived. I think we were one of the first ones in, and we were in little porter cabins that had no air conditioning, and we were sweating all over our drawings and all the
been there.
And every hour or so we'd have to leave the site while they dynamited the tank out. So we'd all run up to the main road, and boom, great explosion, dust would cover the whole site and cover all our drawings and all this. So we knew we were into something really rather unusual from the get-go. And then, when you start seeing 800 foot of steel starting to go up, and the technical kind of headaches of making all of that work, and the interaction with special effects in the thing had to sync. The complications of that build were second to none, and I don't think there'd ever be anything like it again.
No.
They built the whole thing on. It was a big, huge steel frame that we built, and that was all put on hydraulic cable that special effects worked through, so that you could slacken the cable off across the width of the ship. The steel frame sat on that, and you could slacken the hydraulics and let the ship sink. So you could cables at this end you could drop, so the ship would start to go down into the tank, into the water, and then you could bring it up again and go for take two just by lifting up the cables. And it was an extraordinary feat of engineering.
Because the sturdiness of bringing something up again to do it again. I mean,
well, absolutely. I mean, it was phenomenal, and the build itself was phenomenal. Just to recreate every rivet that was on the side of the ship was pretty much correct, because we worked it all out, and we put them all in the correct place. All the steel plating on the side of the hull, the window positions, the detailing, the doors, the funnels. It was an exact replica of Titanic, only 45 foot shorter, I think, from memory. We cut about 45 foot out, and I still don't really understand why we did that, but we did. And then, of course, we had the tilting poop deck set, which was at the end of the film, where Jack and Rose end up on the railing before it all goes down, and that was itself was an extraordinary, engineering wonder to be able to pick that whole deck up and do that, and then lower it again. And so a lot of really, technical things that had never been done before were achieved on that movie. And for whether you like the film or not, or whether you think it's a bit hammy, it's still an extraordinary achievement, that job. And we were blown away with it, and very fortunate to have been involved.
It does feel like, I mean, it's, in my mind, it's still 97 is still fairly recent, but it does seem, like you said, that nothing like that's ever going to happen again with the advent of technology today.
TG.
And just that sort of that single-mindedness of a director like Cameron to do something like that. I mean, I've spoken to people that worked on The Abyss with him, when they built that giant water tank, and I mean, it's just it just wouldn't happen today. It really wouldn't.
No, it really wouldn't. I don't think you'd ever get it financed.
No.
Of something of that scale. I mean, Cameron put a lot of his own money into that, and I think he deferred some of his fee to be able to kind of achieve it. But just the sheer scale of what was achieved on that, I don't really see anybody stupidly wanting to do it again.
Yeah, because I remember the press at the time. It was sort of destined to be a flop in a way, because every headline was overspend. It was too many days. It was this, that, and the other. The press seemed to want it to be, like you said, they wanted to see Cameron and his crew fail, but to come out the other side to have what I think didn't it overtake Star Wars as the most successful film of all time. I remember there was an advert in Variety of like the Star Wars characters looking at the Titanic or something. There's a little message from George Lucas. It was a sort of handing off of, wow, you've achieved something amazing here, and then to get all the Oscars and all of that. Incredible, really. And it sort of really bookends a period in the film industry, based on what we've just been talking about, where people just couldn't do that anymore. Great to be a part of something like that.
Well, it was interesting to see, when you see the final movie, some of the very basic visual effects that were creeping into movie making in those days, and
like those fly pasts where you could see
people walking on the deck and things like that. And that was the beginning of that world taking over, I think. And obviously Cameron loves his visual effects, so he was to go and run with that is obviously the future of it. But we did a lot in camera on that show as well. Huge painted backdrops of sunsets and things like that. Right. But if you without that there, you'd be looking at a little fishing village in Rosarito. But we had scenic artists who painted the backdrops, and obviously nowadays it will be blue screen. But it was a real scenic painted world in those days.
Yeah. Did you, coming off the back of that job, I mean, A, did you take a break first, and then B, did you sort of relish getting into a smaller project? Or looking on IMDb, I think you were straight into something like The Avengers or The World Is Not Enough, or
God knows. I can't remember. What did we do? Let's see, somewhere here. I'm not actually sure what I did straight after that. Probably The Avengers. I think it was the Ralph Fiennes, Uma Thurman movie, which unfortunately wasn't very good, but it was a lovely film to work on with Stuart Craig. First time working for the great Stuart Craig, and we did some beautiful sets, but the film was not one to be.
It sort of came and went fairly quickly, didn't it?
But that again, there's still big movies, so and then I think then it was into Bond movies. We'd done, prior to Titanic, we'd done GoldenEye with Peter Lamont, which was the first Brosnan Bond, which was his best one, I feel.
It was great. Yeah.
And then I think after the Avengers, we did the second Brosnan one, which was The World Is Not Enough, which again was not one of the best Bond movies, but had a really lovely time doing it. And those movies are always huge and challenging. And they keep you on your toes in terms of, right, we're going to really ramp up the action this time, and then a lot of stunts and special effects, and each time trying to outdo each other. But lovely things to work on. Bonds are really, really nice people, and good fun, and always good, nice locations. Yes,
but and I guess again you've got that sort of continuity with those people. And do you work on a freelance basis then? Are you your own limited company, if you like?
I'm just I'm not a limited company.
You're a sole trader, right?
Sole trader, yeah. So lots of people are a limited company. I don't have the discipline for that, so I stick as a Schedule D kind of guy.
But then you'll get a call from somebody who says, "Look, I'm going to be working on this show. I'd really like you to be involved," and you're sort of signing on the dotted line for the next however many months.
I think that's how we all work as freelancers. You just wait for the next call. I mean, the joys of doing House of the Dragons is you're pretty sure it's coming, and so you can plan your life a little. Whereas the real sort of film world, you never know what's around the corner. And so you literally are, you finish a job, right, do I go on holiday or do I save the money, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. Do you ever get can you ever get comfortable in those moments where the phone isn't ringing? Like, what do you do with yourself?
I try not to think about it. I think most, you know, if you're going to spend your life really panicking about where the next dollar's coming from, then you're probably in the wrong industry. And you know, the more you do, the more you get used to having to put a little aside for a rainy day and not kind of be too extravagant in your lifestyle. In the knowledge that it could be 2 months away, it could be 6 months away. You know, I've had periods earlier on in my career where you'd have 8 months out of work, along with everybody else, because the industry was collapsed, or and we've been very fortunate, I think, certainly in the UK, not so much in the States, that our industry has flourished massively over the last 10 years or so. All the studios are rammed, they're continually extending stages and studio space and all of that. And we were doing great until COVID. And then COVID hit and everybody had a rethink. And I think we're still trying to recover from that rather disastrous period, followed by the actors' strike. So I think producers have taken a little step back and thought, okay, well, how are we going to spend our money here? You know, it's not the gold rush that we had for the last few years. And I think a lot of people in the industry have slightly come a cropper in that they believe, if they're new to the industry, certainly from the 2000s and 2010 onwards, that life was always going to be like this. But us old hands, been around in the 80s and the 90s. It was very much a quieter time, and we're sort of slightly more used to the periods of unemployment than some of the younger members of the UK film industry. So it's been tough for people.
Yeah, it's the same in my part of the industry, working in live TV. Usually it doesn't suffer when there's a recession or there's a downturn, because everyone's at home watching live sport and TV. But with advertising revenue kind of dropping off and the model disappearing, there's this period now of readjustment and realignment of where the revenue's coming from, and haven't really quite figured it out. I'm lucky enough to be on big sports like Formula One and athletics and things. So, they're fairly insulated. But no, you're right about that. There was that period, wasn't there, where I think there was like every bit of studio space was booked out for 4 years in the UK or something.
Couldn't get in anywhere.
There were new studios popping up. What's the one down in Shinfield kind of popped up fairly recently. I was down there maybe 6 or 8 months ago. Right. There were only 2 stages being used out of I don't know however many they've got. But no, difficult times. Well, I hope it does pick up. It feels like these things do sort of go in cycles. There was that period, wasn't there, when the boom in the 80s here with a lot of the Hollywood directors coming over with the tax breaks and everything, and then of course Elstree sort of selling off half of their plot to Tesco's and things like that. But then it does seem to sort of ebb and flow. So I hope it does.
I think it will. Back. I think we. I think it will pick up again. It seems to be, steadily. The arc is increasing, I think, a little bit more now. So hopefully there'll be enough to keep everyone entertained.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people, when they get a bit of free time with their work, or they have a bit of leave or whatever, they'll go and do something creative. They'll paint or they'll build or extend their house or whatever it is. What does somebody who's doing that stuff constantly as their job do? What do you do in your spare time?
It's going to sound a bit poncy, this, but I like to think of myself as a creative person, and I've, coming through the art department over the years, been able to use my creativity until you get to a point where you're a supervising art director and you're not really doing creative work. You're more running the show, and you're sorting out budgets and schedules, and you're checking on everybody else who's being creative and making sure they're doing the right things, and so there's a lot of that. So I very much, when I do finish work, need that outlet to go and do something creative. And so I'm a very keen photographer. I do my own music. and so we're very serious about that. But as a hobby, but I take it very seriously. I never make any money out of it, but it's just for me, and I have to do that.
The end game, is it? Yeah.
No, yeah, I have to do that to keep myself sane. Otherwise, I'd be sort of, it's like, is it all just about spreadsheets? So I have to find that outlet to do something for myself as well.
Yeah.
Once I'm done on a project, I try and find that, and travel helps with that because I'm a keen photographer, so I grab my camera and off I go.
Nice.
Yeah.
And when you are waiting for the phone to ring and a job comes in, do you sort of equally relish those big tentpole movies like Wonder Woman and the Harry Potters of the world, or do you like prefer to work? I mean, it's obviously difficult to say, but do you prefer to work on something like Belfast with Kenneth Branagh? Well, as a smaller unit, kind of. Yeah, they're all so different, really. I think, I loved working on Belfast. It was a fabulous little thing to do, and we were all badly paid and all that, but it was it was good fun, and we had a very tight little budget, and we had to build Belfast streets that we could smash up and have riots in and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't like we could really go to a location. Where was that shot?
Strangely enough, at Farnborough Airfield, there was there was a car park there, and we built it there, and with a very limited amount of money. And we had Jim Clay up ladders painting the set, and myself were all sort of getting stuck in because you didn't have enough people and we didn't have enough time or enough money. So everybody was just jumping in on it.
Was that during COVID as well? Sorry,
that was
So and they have their own challenges. You were saying,
totally. I mean, COVID really kind of was a very strange time to work. I mean, we had to do a COVID-friendly street riot. And we couldn't have people mixing, so they all had to be wearing balaclavas and things around here, where obviously they had masks underneath.
Right, yeah.
But it was, those were the rules we were kind of working to. So those kind of little movies are lovely to do in many ways, just as much as the big ones. They have their same problems because you're really just scaling down the same issues, and you've got less money to do something with, so it can create its own headaches. But the big ones are, you get to do more exciting stuff.
Yeah. And are you part of a union as well?
I'm not personally, no.
You're not?
I mean, there is BEC2 as a union.
Same as mine, yeah.
I'm not really, don't really have too much to do with that.
No, my question, I guess, was, do you, as people that work in the art department, do you meet up at any time? Do you sort of discuss each other's work? Do you have a journal? Is there a magazine? Is there a way to sort of interact with each other?
There's a nice thing. The British Film Designers Guild is a group of art department members. Really, we all sign up for that, and there's various events and portfolio reviews and bits and pieces that they set up continually through the year, and get young people, starting out in the industry can join and meet some of us old timers, and they do social events, and we have an awards ceremony at the end of each year or in February, which is always a great do, very sort of glamorous. Everyone togs up and goes to it, and then the whole departments, everybody meets, and you see all your old pals, and then you do sit around and chat and find out what everybody's doing and what's coming up, and it can be very social. And then there's obviously, you go through your career and you make friendships, so you sort of every now and again you just meet up with somebody and catch up. So it's we definitely try and keep a little sort of film industry family going, if you know what I mean. And you do, sadly, quite often you only meet up at funerals these days, but it's that's when everybody comes together, and it's still a small industry, really, in terms of the top end of it.
Yeah. No, it sounds like I've always felt like my toe has been dipped into the film world now and again, like I said, with Michael Ford and with Peter Lamont, and I was at Robert Watts's funeral, the producer, earlier in the year, and bumped into Walter Murch, and
yeah.
who I've interviewed a couple of times, and I know a little bit. And it does feel like there's a sort of mutual respect for each other's jobs in that community. Everybody kind of feels the need to pay their respect in a situation like that, which is what it's there for ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all in the trenches together, so to speak, and you kind of you do hold each other up in those. We've all been through the wars, and it does create that camaraderie.
Yeah, it's a unique kind of bond, isn't it?
Like
when I've travelled away on Formula One for months and months, and like I said, socialised and all of that stuff with those people. There's just something you sort of carry between you that isn't always like a thing you can express verbally. It's going to just be a little look across a room, and you'll know that they're thinking about, that time you solved that problem or whatever it was.
You just spent 6 months in the jungle with that person. It's like so you're going to have some fairly strong bonds.
Yeah. So what's next for you then? House of the Dragon going full steam ahead?
I think so. We'll see how we go, but I think that's going to kick off for us in the summer sometime. So for now, I'm going travelling. I'm going to hit the road for a few weeks, and then see what happens. Come back and do enhanced photography for season 3 that we just finished, and then wait for season 4. I think. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Well. Yeah. From this side of the screen, I appreciate all the work that you and your colleagues do, and it's always great to talk to somebody like you and get more of an insight. So, yeah, thanks for your time today, Dom.
Not at all. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And there we go, my conversation with Dominic Masters. I always love hearing from people who have spent decades inside a particular department. And the art department is one of those, it's one of those disciplines that most viewers never consciously think about, and yet it shapes kind of everything, really. Listening to Dom talk about growing up on the 2001 sets is just amazing, and improvising through those early years of the British film slump, surviving the scale of Titanic with Jim Cameron, and navigating the enormous machine that is his current job, the House of the Dragon, with Ryan Condor. In fact, I'm going to see Ryan tomorrow, or today, if you're listening on the 25th, because Prop Store have a preview of their upcoming auction, and Ryan is going to be there. I haven't seen him in a while. It would be good to catch up. I'll let you know how that goes. In fact, I've just been to Prop Store today, not for a mooch around and an interview, but actually to drop some things off. I've decided to put some bits up for auction. I need some cash, honestly. And so, I popped up to Rickmansworth and dropped off a few items. And they're going to be in a few auctions next year. Anyway, what I was going to say was, talking about House of the Dragon with Dom, it's just a reminder of just how collaborative, precarious and impressive this industry really is. I just always find it fascinating. That's why I'm still doing this, 139 episodes in. If you enjoy these deep dive interviews, please do consider supporting me on Patreon. Could be just $12 for the entire year, but it would make a hell of a difference to me. There are 120 of you doing that at the moment. I would love to get that to 400. That would be amazing, because I know that there's a few thousand of you that listen every month to these episodes, and it genuinely helps me keep this podcast going, to book guests and carve out time to make these conversations happen. Of course, also have a look at the Filmumentaries YouTube channel. I've been putting a few more bits and bobs up there recently, including extra clips, archive material, and more of these conversations. Well, thanks for listening, and I hope you can do so for the next episode of the Filmumentaries Podcast.